Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah wa rabbil alameen. As-salatu salam ala rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Halin wa salim bikum. Salamu alaikum rahmatullahi barakatuh lil ikhwan ikhwati fi Afrika wa Europa wa America, Caribbean wa kulli makan. Anjurama to my full-bed community and all my brothers and sisters everywhere you may be. Today, I have the pleasure of talking about the Futafula. And I got a lot of feedback from a lot of good brothers, meaningful brothers who are concerned about the image of the Futafula, and rightfully so. As you heard me say, for many weeks, we have taken a beating from the press, the African press, the Arab press, and the Tuba press have really eaten us up alive. Some of it is written is true, but a great portion of it is not true. And you heard me for weeks, so you see my program, I give you evidence of what has happened. And we must admit here that the jihad that's been undertaken by many of our brothers have been very, very harsh and very vicious and malicious in their retaliation to what has happened to them. And you heard me say many times, I don't know what I would do in a situation if I had to live in fear in my village, knowing that other ethnic groups, security forces, and Tuba forces can come in and slay my family anytime they want. Or they have already slain my family and they have been coming back. What would I do? And those things, each one we have to ponder. The second part to this, and I get started, is we're in a dilemma because as Futafula people, if we don't talk, we allow everyone to basically draw their own conclusion, and then they go by the narrative that's been handed out, especially by the Tuba press and by some of our haters on the African continent as well. Or we talk about and educate the Fula, the non-Fula people, Muslims, non-Muslims alike, so they can get a better understanding on what has caused some of the ruckus that's been happening in the Sahel. So, we're kind of like in a trap. You don't talk, we're going to get torn up in the press. If we do talk, we're still going to get torn up. So we have to do. Islamically speaking, we are to always side with justice. And we do have injustices and justices on both sides of this. So I took the high road of, since I am a historian, African historian, I must talk about these issues and get it out there and let people then know the other side of the story. So with that said, my brothers and sisters, it gives me my pleasure to talk about this particular subject because, we have a big area of the Sahel, what you see here. I got this blue here because that blue represents, again, the western part of Sudan, which there's the contention, even as we speak now, there's a contention there. There's bloodshed being shed there by our cousins there in Western Sudan. Again, as you heard me talk about many times, we have the Nuba people, which they're ranging from the blue and the green blacks. If you heard my classes, I should say, you know about these people. So I won't get deep into them right now because it's not about them. And so we have these kinships. The Fula people have gone everywhere. And you heard me say this, I've given you proof. We have other Fulani people who you heard me talk in the past. Again, some sisters I know who's supposed to be experts have given some diatribe. You heard me talk that is absolutely disgustingly wrong. And the Fula people are everywhere. And we know this, especially by DNA. We also know this as well. So with that said, now we're going to get back into Sudan again. And I've been talking the last couple of weeks about the R.S.F, the Junjuweed, they're the military group that's fighting for the to take over Sudan. And it's a very touch and go situation. It's very fluid, and we have a lot of stuff going on in the continent. I mean, in Sudan. And as you look at Sudan there, but as you find everywhere across the Sahel, you find the Futafula are heavily embedded into an area, and there's some form of jihad is being conducted. In this case, we have people that we did not know, many of us did not know, that they are our cousins in the Futafula family, but they speak the Arabic language. I had a brother write to me and he said he's not Arab, he's this, that, and so forth and so on. I understood what he was saying, but we have to say the truth. We had our brothers, they have went there. We have traveled from Nigeria, from Niger, and from Chad into Sudan. And men usually marry the women that they migrate to. No different than the case of the you heard me weeks back here now, about 6-7 months ago, you heard me talk about the case of Andalus. Their modern day Spain. Our Fulani brothers went there. And what did they do? They married and had handmaidens who were white. They created a new race of people called the Melungeons. And if you saw my talk about this issue, I gave you proof and what happened and how we ended up in Europe, in southern part of Europe, in Spain, as we know it today, and how we disappeared. Well, we have a similar situation now. How did the Fulani people disappear in the eastern corridor of the Sahel? It's very similar in some ways, but we have disappeared in this region. And no one knows too much about that. The Futafula are the main stock of the R.S.F who are fighting for Sudan today. And if you looked at my caption, what I talked about, I asked a question: if R.S.F win, is it going to be a Fula state or is it going to be an Arab state? See, this is the question that we have raised. Now, again, brothers and sisters, we have some of our pundits who even are Fulani will say that over to your left, you see the Pular, the Fulfulde language, Pular, and some parts of Mali, that's where the real, true Fulani people are. Now, if you look at that, you have to say that's idiocy, because how we have the Fula language being spoken all the way in Sudan. And so, again, I show you this to prove to those who will tell you, no, the real Fulani people are only in Senegal. No, they're in parts of the Gambia only. They're in parts of Mali. But everywhere else, they're not full of people. Well, how do we get the Fulfulde dialects in Nigeria? How do we get it in Niger and Chad? How do we get it in the Cameroons and the southern parts of Nigeria? How do we get the Fulfulde dialects being spoken in Sudan? See, again, brothers and sisters, I bring you proof for our naysayers, even among our community, said that the Futafula are only in a small area. No, we are travelers. We have traversed all the way down to Mozambique. But the names have changed, as you've seen that I had my caption there. So with that said, now we're going to get started on this. The Fulani ethnic group mixed with the cattle grazing and camel herding clans in eastern Chad and western Sudan. They became essentially Sudanese Fulani Arabs because of the mixture with the herders and the camel herding clans there in the Eastern Corridor, which again is the Sudan, Chad, Eastern Chad, Western Sudan, corridor, Eastern Corridor area. And they became Fulani Arabs, essentially. Now, let's get deeper into this. You'll see names, and you heard me for the last couple of weeks talk about this, for the last 6 months, talk about the names that have been designated for the Futafula community. One of the names is Falata. You heard me talk about them, and I gave you statistics about them in the southern part of Sudan we understand today and whatnot. Then you have the Falaita. And this is the other name, especially in this corridor area of Chad and the Sudan. You heard me say about the, get this, we get our map here again of this. So we have, okay, now where you at here? I just had you guys here, or had you here. Now here we go. So again, you look at Chad, Eastern Chad, which would be to your right, and then Western in the blue of Sudan. And so they have two names. So how did we get to that point? The Western media and other powers, the enemies to the Futafula, doesn't want us to know that their cousins reside in Sudan, which is true, because they don't want you to really know what's going on in Sudan, and that the Fulani people are in it, and especially on the verge of taking Sudan. So this is a very interesting point. We as Fula people should understand across the Sahel, and all the Africans and our brothers and cousins of the Hausa, our brothers, the Igbo, the Yoruba, across the Wolof, Jolof, Mandinka, all across the Capelli people, all the way across the board. This is a history that includes you as well, because we have mixed with all of the groups I just said. And the jihad from the 1300s to the 1800s, one of the factors about this thing, about the Fula people, were that we were masters of the Arabic language. We spoke this as the first language. And then some of us became Sudanese, Sudani Arabs and the Shawa Arabs, which you have in northern Nigeria today, and Bagara herders. They got two names, and you can use either one of them. The last here is where the contention is, because we have many clans. This is where the Fula people have been hidden and disappeared. And this is an interesting part. Now, let's go back to something here. The Falata people, we understand, again, when we talk about the Falata people, we're not talking about the people in Mali. We're not talking about our brothers in Burkina Faso or Nigeria or Togo or Ghana, whatever the situation may be. We're talking about areas now, if you see here, in Chad, Southern Sudan, and Sudan's Upper Nile state. Again, proving that we are inside with 6 million of these people, again, with the names of Falaita. See, now, here's where the contention is. The Falaita people are a Semitic tribe. That's not true. They are Africans. They're not from the Middle East or Jazira Arab. But we have people, when they make the report, again, to confuse you, to make it sound like these people can't be Fula, but they are Fula people. So they use the word Semitic to drive you out of Africa and put you back into Jazira Arab, to make it, again, appear as though we're talking about white Arabs. It's not the case. And here it talks about the 19th century migration, which is true. They had a big migration. And as you understand the history of Nigeria, this is culminating in that. Now, how could we be living in Nigeria, okay, and being black folk? Suddenly we go over to Eastern Chad, which we have black people there. We have blue blacks and green blacks in Chad. They'd never have been Tubab and white. But suddenly we have reporters who tell us that these people who leave Nigeria are Semitic. Brothers and sisters, this is not true. The Shawa people, yes, they came from Jazeera Arab. That's true, them. We'll get into them a little bit more. You're familiar with them. They're in Nigeria. They're there. So we have to bring that point up, which is kind of perplexing, why they tried to mislead us. And so now we look at the map of what they call the Shawa Arab or the Bagwaro, okay, who I mentioned, herders, and the kinships. You see in the green, they're running from the Kanuri stronghold there in the northwestern part of Nigeria, all the way across into Sudan. And again, brothers and sisters, our brothers have mixed there in Nigeria, mixed in Chad, mixed in Sudan, came back as herders and went back into Nigeria, went into Niger, which they became other names. So when the Futafula went into Sudan, they became Arabs because they mixed with the herders and whatnot, as you heard me talk about, like with the Hummer people, which I have, that's my heritage. I got the Hummer people as part of my heritage. And then when they returned back to Nigeria and Niger and Mali, they became different names. But we all know these people, meaning they have went to Sudan, stayed there 200 years, and now have returned back to pastoral lands back in Nigeria, Niger, and so forth and so on. So again, I'm giving you this history. This may be mundane, but this I'm giving history for those who want to understand the Futafula people, where they're at, what are they doing, when did they go here, who do they mix with, who are their ethnic groups now, why are we calling some of them Arabs? You see, this is the confusion. This is why I'm doing this, so you can understand how did the Futafula become Sudani. Now you understand, because of the migration. And they intermarried with quote unquote Afro-Arabs who were there in Sudan, and they became Afro-Arabs. Because again, when the brothers left Nigeria, they didn't take their wives with them. When they came into Sudan, right? They came in Sudan, they began to see these girls, Shawa Arabs, Sudani Arabs. They began to see these girls, and they married them because they look just like Fulani people themselves. This young lady marries a Fulani herdsman. They have children. She speaks Arabic. So what happens to our children? They don't learn the Fulfulde dialect as we understand it in many, like in Nigeria today. They begin to mix this dialect with Arabic. Thus, we have this language, which they call the Fulfulde Sudani language. Now you get the picture what has happened. Because our brothers have traveled everywhere. When our brothers went into Spain, they did not take our women with them because they went in jihad. They went there to fight. They didn't take our sisters with them. So what did they do? What was in Europe? And they had the prisoners of war and their families and so forth. Men were killed off. Women under Islam, you heard me talk, we do not throw the women to fend for themselves. That's a no-no in Islam. We do not do that. When we go to conquer or to fight somebody, the women that are there, we do not slay them. That's against the Islamic law. I know what has happened in Palestine. That's another issue. But we're not to slay the women unless they are combatants. But we're supposed to pull them inside the fold of Islam, and then the men as war booty, anfal, they have 1, 2, 5, 10 of these sisters who they can take care of and they live under the protection of this Muslim man. So that's how we do that. See, so again, our brothers leave Nigeria, some parts of Niger, and they find sisters like this. They marry those sisters. This sister has 3, 4, 5 children, part Fulani, and with quote unquote Sudani Arab. She in turn trains her children under the what? The Arabic language, even though they're part Fulani. This is how we disappeared in Sudan. See, so that I want to get you to understand the saga that has happened with us. It's a beautiful story when you really think about it. But what has happened to us now, because we're fighting in Sudan, we became mujahideen and whatnot like this, and we're fighting, you know, to take over Sudan because of injustices as happened to the Fulani people all the way across the land in the Sahel. They're tired of being killed, assassinated, and discriminated against. And so our people only know one way, as jihad, to fight against our oppressors. This is in our blood. We've been doing this since the 700s. If we don't fight back, we get exterminated. So I ask the question to you now is, if you look at Palestine and you see our brothers in Palestine, they're being exterminated. Do they have the right to fight back? They have the human right. You would say yes. So why is it that you would say no to our Fulani brothers who are being exterminated in the Sahel? You heard me for weeks bring proof. The UN reports about how we've been slaughtered, 500 here, 300 here. Nobody talks about that. 75 here. Driving while Fulani, they're like those 4 young, brilliant Fulani brothers in a car there in Nigeria going across the road there, and they were waylaid by Hausa brothers. And they got them when they knew they were Fulani, and they you know, killed them. So they take the jihad like this. And this is a problem that we have to encounter. So now, how do we get into the area? You remember our great ancestral brother, Usman den Fodio. In Arabic, we know him as Uthman den Fudi. In the Arabic language, this is what we call him, our great ancestral Mujahid deluxe and scholar and imam. He had his Sokoto, they say caliphate here. I don't like to use that word caliphate, because when you have a caliphate, you have one ruler. And we don't have one ruler, because, you know, the Muslims have many rulers. So I call this a emirate or a sultanate. And by 1817, our esteemed brother died after the jihad, and you see how big his emirate was. In 1817, he passed on. Many of our brothers had a new jihad to fight in Sudan. So they began to travel. And again, we've had herders and we had others to go there with us. Not only the Fulani, we also had the Hausa brothers as well. And Kanuri brothers also went into that region to fight. And they took Arab wives, Sudani Arab wives. Again, we're not talking about the white Tuba Arab that you see in Jordan and in Lebanon. We're talking about other black folk, but they're Arabs. They're Arabs. And again, you see this sister. I can put her in Los Angeles, California. No one will call her white. We'll call her, she's a light-skinned black woman. We put her down in Mississippi, it's the same thing. No one will call her a Tuba, because she's not. She's a light-skinned brother, but we have the Fulani people, we have light-skinned people. I look at my mom. If you saw pictures, if I had put some of my pictures of my mom, she's passed on a number of years, you know, and if you look at her, she's kind of like this lady here, long hair. My mom had very long hair. And I used to look at them when I was a little kid. I seen all my relatives. I didn't know who. I said, who are my relatives? Why do you look different than on my dad's side? Because my dad's side is, again, we have, Igbo and we have Yoruba on my dad's side. See, yes, and we have some also in Chad and in some parts of Sudan on my dad's side. My dad, on his lineage, they are, literally coal black in color. But my mom is like this. She was, I should say, was this, because now she's passed on a number of years, but she was like this. See, so again, that mixing took place, and it's a beautiful thing, because we need to understand how we disappeared in Sudan. As you heard me say, now you understand. Our brothers took wives like this in Sudan. And these sisters here raised their children who are part Fulani as Arabs and begin to speak the Arab language. So we had all of these clans that passed up. Now, let me give you more proof of this. The people that we understand today that's on the western part of Sudan is the Messaria people, okay? These are known as Arabs, but they're black, okay? But they're black. Now, the interesting part to this, brothers and sisters, is you look down in the bottom here, you see Falaita. The Falaita people are Fulani people, because the Messaria have many different clans. The Hummer people, which I have my heritage, is part of my heritage on my mom's side, okay, means red in Arabic. It's not that they're red, but they have a kind of a tingy color to themselves. But this is what they're known as. As you saw the picture, I gave you a picture of the brothers in turbans and on camels. Those are the Hummer Mujahideen, which now there are many, and they make a big nucleus inside the R.S.F. we know today. But you look down here at the bottom, the Falaita people, and this is some of the names that they carry. You do not see Fula, you do not see Pulo or anything like this. You find other names, but they're Fulani, because these are the subdivisions of the Sudani quote-unquote Arab. So the Falaita people is what the Sudani Arabs called us when we came into the region. And when they found our brothers again, when they found the in Sudan, they found our brothers and sisters who were herding cattle, herding camels, and so forth and so on, right? They intermarried with them. Now you understand, I got, again, reiterated, that's how we became the Arabs, the Sudani Arabs there in Sudan, and how we disappeared as quote unquote full of people. Now, I need to go back to something. What is the difference between the name Falata and Falaita? Well, let me give you what the difference is here, brother, sister. You can get a good picture. The Falata people are recent migrants into the Sudan region. They are Fulani. They still call themselves Fulani, and they still speak a dialect, even though it's starting to change. From Nigeria, they still speak that dialect, but it's starting to change because they have to speak Arabic for obvious reasons, because they're in an Arabic state where the lingua franca is Arabic, okay? They have to. So the people begin to call them Falata, because they are recent arrivals, meaning in the 1920s, 1930s, they begin to migrate into Sudan region. But the Falaita people are their brothers and sisters as well, coming from Nigeria, right? The difference is, you heard me say again, is that the jihad of our brother, our ancestral brother, Usman Den Fodio, right? He passed on. The fighters then went into Sudan. They encountered the Arabs there, the Sudani Arabs, who called them Falaita. That's the difference. So the 1800s, when they came, they were called Falaita. And the 1920s and 1930s, then they adopted the name Falata. That's how the difference. Both are Fulani, both. except now the Falaita people are mixed with the Afro-Arabs. The Falata people are not. There's 300,000 Fulani people estimated living in Sudan today, and they still keep the Fulani culture, heritage, dress, and mannerisms, and they call them Falata people, no doubt. But the Falaita people are mixed, brothers and sisters. Okay, as you see now, they're mixed with all these Arab tribes. You see this now, and so that's how they became the Arabs, Sudani Arabs. Now you get a bit better picture that I gave to you, and the R.S.F. is the nucleus of this, brothers and sisters. They have all of these clans here are part of the R.S.F. Now you understand how this jihad there in Sudan is so strong. These are just only part of some of the ethnic groups, brothers and sisters, that are part Fulani and so forth and so on. Some are out and out Arabs. Others are mixed Arab with Fulani. And there's over 100,000 strong of all these clans who went to back each other's play. They became the R.S.F. Now you understand how we got to this point. Now, I'll give you something else. The term that a lot of the people in the Sudani Arabic language, okay, no doubt, they called the people from Western Sudan, which they call us Fulani, right? Like in Nigeria, especially Nigeria, Fulani. They call them Bagara people, right? Meaning they're nothing but herds. But that name has taken on a negative connotation. See? So they do not like to use this name anymore. They like to use the term Messaria. Remember, I gave you that. I showed you what that is. I showed you again, the name Messaria. They prefer this name, and it goes to show you here how they are, and they're. I showed you the map. They're part of Chad in Western Sudan, and part of northern Nigeria. As we speak today, they're there. See, so now you have this region here, and in Darfur, where the blue and green blacks, where all the killing is going on as we speak right now, they claim that they came from Yemen. Originally, the Shawa, the Arabs came from Yemen. They weren't white. They had to be black. Because I have not seen any of these Arabs from this region that look like Tubab with white, cold white complexion, with the mannerisms, the hair color, blonde, and all that. I have maybe some of my brothers in Nigeria have seen some of them, and maybe in some other parts. I never saw them like that. I never seen any of them look reminiscent of a British or a Swedish girl. Never. I've only seen them brown, light brown, and dark brown. See? So now we get to understanding this part. So I'm giving you this education, brothers and sisters, so you will have it, so you can easily explain the what has happened to us. This again is a history for you, all of African people, to understand how your brothers, the Fulani, how they came about into the eastern corridor of the Sahel. Now you understand how they became Arabs. I gave you many weeks back about how we went into the Andalus and we disappeared there, and how we created a new race of people, because our brothers, the Fulani brothers, who were at that time imams, they were walis, they were mayors of many cities inside Andalus, as we know Spain, when they took it over. And they took Spanish women, we understand today, as handmaidens. And those women had many babies, and to the point it was so prevalent in Andalus, as you heard me talk about, they created a new race of people called the Melungeons. As you heard me talk about, that means you had to have a black daddy and a white mother. And if you look at the DNA of many Melungeons today who ended up in the United States, you find Fulani there. You'll find some little house here and there, but you'll find also Sinike, and you'll find Hapapular, and so forth and so on. So you'll find that in the DNA. But that's just, again, showing you the scope of how we've traveled and how we've been integral part in wars, how we've taken place in jihad. So you have to look at it from the standpoint Islamically. Don't be ashamed because you read what they have in the press. If you're educated on your people, I go and fight and do battles. When I see stuff on YouTube, I put my input in there and I go after the people, because half the time they call us, terrorists, or we're associated with AQ or IS. I go after them for this. See? And so the same thing is when they begin to misname us and say, oh, we are this. You don't understand. They don't understand what has happened to us, but they just make a generalization. Now you should be able to you have the education to now do battle for your people, because you should. And every African should know that. It's no different than my brothers who are Wolof. If they're being misused and being, talked, maligned and talked against, and we as other African people should come to bat for our brother and say, look, the Wolof people are not this way. We should be doing this for each African brother, regardless of what their ethnic group is, because all of us are talked against and all of us are blamed for things and all of us are maligned, right? So this is what we should be trying to do, brothers and sisters. And so when we look at this thing here again, we look at the Bagara belt, which you heard me talk about that, which, no, excuse me. Now, I'll go back to this. Brothers and sisters, here is the fact of the jihad that we've had for so long. This in the green is the Fulani Jihad and the Fulani Jihad States. There's Messina. You see there? Messina was integral part from the 1300s to the 1800s. You see the Futa Toro. You see the Futa Jelen. Okay, you see Sokoto. You see these are some. There's not all. There's some, but some of the bigger ones, empires we had. But that's again showing you the scope of how the Fulani have been masters of West Africa one way or another for centuries. And now we're on the verge of going into Sudan. We're in Sudan, and they just might take that over. And boy, we're going to have a big mess, because the Americans, of course, and the Russians don't want to see that. And again, this is the map, brothers and sisters. You see the Shawa people there in the northern, okay, to your left here, the Shawa Arabs, okay? We know they're there in Nigeria. We also know them to be in Chad. If you look down here to your right at the bottom, there's the Hummer people, which is my heritage. My mom, on my mom's side, the Hummer people, and also you heard me talk about who are related to the people of Congo. They call them the Hama people. Very interesting name, isn't it? Hummer, right? Hummer. See, very similar. And again, you saw Messaria. There's the name there in the center there to your right. All of these are clans, mixed Fulani clans we understand today, all across this region. And they're in Sudan. This is why the R.S.F. force is so large, because you have all of these mixed Fulani clans going to battle in Sudan. And you say, well, yeah, I still don't understand because I didn't see your other program. Why are they fighting? That's a good question. They're fighting because they claim that they are Sudani. But the government forces declared them not to be Sudani because their daddies were what? Fulani. They have Fulani mixtures. Even though they're Arabs and they speak Arabic just like anybody in the government forces, they said, no, but you got a history. You are part Fulani. And we know your history being part Fulani from Nigeria. So therefore, you can't take power in Sudan. This is what the government forces have said to the R.S.F., causing this jihad of theirs in Sudan. That's part of it. The former President Bashir denied them citizenship as well in 2008, adding to the frustration. And they were maligned. But then when he needed them to fight, I think our brothers in some ways were wrong. because they were getting along with the blue and green blacks. They had some skirmishes on the farms and all that kind of thing, but nothing much. But the ex-president said, I'm going to use the Fulani, part Fulani people in the jihad because I want to remove the green and blue blacks from western part of Sudan. And they did. He armed them and they became the Janjaweed. You heard me talk about them, which means a devil or jinn on a horse is a very negative connotation. These are your brothers in jihad. As far as I'm concerned, in some ways they made a mistake. They shouldn't have went into jihad to eliminate the green and blue blacks because that was their area as well to live. They've been there time immemorial because they were the first original people of that land, were the Nuba people, not us, the Fulani, not the Arabs and so forth. We came last. And then after they were used, then suddenly they became outsiders again. And then when Bashir was overthrown, the government turned back around. The government forces, the military said, hey, man, yeah, we fought with you. Yes, we helped you down in the southwest. But hey, man, you're not Sudani. You're Fulani. And you belong back over in Chad and in Nigeria. This is what they were saying to them. This caused further frustrations, being maligned. Because they said we were Sudani. They're saying, no, you're not Sudani. Causing this situation, brothers and sisters. Then, here we have this. The House of Falaita, Sudani identity, because these people here, our brothers, are saying, hey, we've been here since the 1800s. My father came in the 1900s. You hear them say this. And now they're fighting for this Sudanese rights. Just like in Ghana, the Ghanaian government won't give us in Ghana, the Fulani people, citizenship. Now you understand why they're maligned. And then you go after them on top of that. So they take the jihad. Unfortunately, the press, again, goes after our jihad, but they don't talk about why we're in jihad and what happened to us, which I explained to you there in, a couple of weeks back about what happened in Ghana. But this goes to show you here, we have a conflict because we're not recognized. Even the House of people there are not recognized as Sudani, even though they've been there for 3 or 4 or 5 generations. You see what I mean? So I'm hoping, brothers and sisters, you start to get the picture and understanding what has happened, how we disappeared in Sudan, and how we're the integral part of the R.S.F. This is the R.S.F. today. They are over 100, they say between 100,000 to 150,000 strong. These are mixed Arab, Fulani people, our brothers. And this is who is fighting today in Sudan, trying to take it over from the government forces, and is regarded as outsiders. See, now, so you can see this, you see the pictures of them and whatnot. You look at some of their faces, you see them, and you try to figure out, and this is some of our brothers that are there as well in eastern part of Chad. And this, again, is what making them into jihad. This is, quote unquote, a Messaria child who, again, is one of the clans, but he's got a grandfather or something who's Fulani. And there he is. He's a herder of mostly cattle, but also camel and horses as well. They're expert horsemen riders. That's why they used them in jihad and in the semi-desert savannah regions, because they're master horsemen and on the camel. So they're good in their jihad. They're very good in their jihad in fighting into areas that are very difficult, that calls for close hand-to-hand combat or terrain that the cars have a hard time, getting into. And then, of course, the Hummer people right here, this is what I'm talking about. They use them because they know how to fight off the camels and off the horses. They're expert on camels. They're experts with horsemen. They're expert cattle herders, just like our brothers are in Nigeria and Chad, and Niger and Burkina Faso and Mali and Mauritania, in the northern tiers of the Western coastal African states. They're experts dealing with cattle and so forth, and horsemen and so forth and so on. So you start to see and get that picture. So, and our brethren went into that corridor, and again, we have disputes. It's led to the fighting in Sudan as well, because we have grazing rights and disputes. This led to the jihad we see all across the Sahel. In Nigeria, what are they fighting about? Grazing rights and disputes, right? They have disputes. We have the same thing going on in the Sudan region and Chad region as we speak now. The same thing, brothers and sisters. You know, I got some people here. Let me recognize them. How you doing, Mama Do? How you doing, my dear brother? Assalamu alaikum. Okay, let me see what our brothers say here. Keep teaching the truth, my elder. You are right. The history is far too deep than many think. Yes, that's true, my dear brother. This is why I want to talk about that, so we can have the education to understand the Futafula people, how we're everywhere and why we're in jihad. Because none of us are sitting in most places in peace. We're always being picked on. We're always being beaten up. And then we're always having people talk against us, to the point, even me here sitting in Morocco and others like me, we cannot get citizenship nowhere in Africa. Nobody will give us citizenship. But the Tuba, yes, they'll give them the citizenship, but people like me, no, they will not. How you doing, my dear brother? I'd love to hear more about the Moorish colonization of the Iberian and Mediterranean. Yes, if you look at my program, it was called I'm trying to remember, the Fulani, Arab and Junju. I can't remember. It's there because I got so many tapes now, my dear brother. But I did talk about that. It's long, and it talks about Andalus. I'm trying to remember the name of that video, but you can pull it up and get. I give you all the evidence, pictures, and everything on how we left the region of Messina area. If you saw my map earlier, how we left from that region. The Moroccans came, our black brothers, the Tuareg and the Amazigh there in Morocco, went down south, got all these jihad fighters from that region and went into Andalus. And you heard my story. I talked about this. They kicked butt. As you heard me talk about this particular saga in Andalus. Very, very interesting. And then they created a new race of people, call them Lunges people. And if you look at their history, you look at their DNA, you don't find them. You don't find Tiv. You don't find Yoruba. You don't find Capelli. You don't find Mende. But what you find with the people, the Mulunja people, is Fulani. Interesting, isn't it? Interesting. See, so thank you, my dear brother. And yes, there's a connection between the resistance. Yes, yes, it is true. And the Hummer people are, because they said they have some kind of tinge to their skin. So this is why they designate, this is them here. They're black, but you notice in the Eastern corridor, we have some like different types of black folk. We have the green black, the blue black, okay? And then we have the Hummer people who have a reddish kind of tinge to their skin. See, we have all of this type of black folk in the Eastern corridor stretching into Egypt as we know it today. So thanks, my dear brothers, for showing up to my program, and I really greatly appreciate that. So you start to get the picture, brothers and sisters, what has happened and why we have this situation in Sudan, how we disappeared in Sudan, and what happened to us, and the clans that we belong to in this region, okay, and so forth. And again, you have to understand what's happened here. You know, men, what happens with men. When men travel, you know this, because as my teacher told me in Ghana one day, he told me, I was talking to him about things like this. He said it was man's nature to eat and mate. How wise he was. He was trying to educate me to say, look, when men leave to go to an area, they're not going to say celibate. They're going to go there and marry the women, regardless if they're white, okay, or Chinese, or any of them. They will marry those women there, especially the Fulani brothers, which we have done this. So they go to these areas and they find wives there and they stay there. and have children, and they die there. And the names they are no longer known as Pulo. They're not that anymore. They are known as Hummer people now. They're known as Misaria. That's what they're known in the eastern corridor of Sudan region. So now you kind of get this picture, brothers and sisters, what has happened there and whatnot. And we have the Shawa Arabs, and there's a contention about who have the most beautiful women, because we have many people say that the contention is the Fulani woman, the Hausa woman, the Canary woman. Kanuri women are far more beautiful. The Shawa people says no, our ladies are. But irrespective of that, our brothers encountered these girls in Sudan and eastern part of Chad, and they married them, and they married these girls, and these girls had children, and those children spoke Arabic. See, so that is a case, what has happened in Sudan and why we disappear. Again, brothers and sisters, this is not a white black thing. This is not a white Tubab Arab from Lebanon or Jordan or from Palestine or something like this, intermarrying or some kind of twist of some fake. No, this is black people, but we have different ethnic names and cultures and languages, but they begin to mix. It's not a black and white issue of mulatto, no, or something like, no, but they mix because of cultural and ethnic traits, and became Arabs because the Prophet said that those who speak Arabic language, okay, are Arabs. He didn't say color. That's the difference. The Arab League has a different definition for that because they go by location, geographical, but they don't go by color either, because they can't contradict the Prophet ﷺ, who said, me, because I'm living in a country where Arabic is the number one language. You have to speak that. According to our Prophet, I'm Arab, according to that. In Sudan, which is interesting, you heard me talk about this in previous, if you look at my tapes, I talk about Sudan when I was there. They classify me as what? Arab, because I look just like the people there, okay? So this is what we got. I want to show you something else too, brothers, sisters. This is part of the Falaita area where they're living, okay? And in many areas, they're in beautiful semi-tropical areas, beautiful lush areas. And our cattle that's there, you can imagine how fat they are, eating off all of the shrubbery that they have there, because the rainfall and the climate is such. Look how beautiful it is. Our Falaita brothers are living in regions like this. Now you understand, when they were driven off the lands here, they fought, and they began to fight green blacks and blue blacks who also live in this region. See, so they live in beautiful areas of Sudan and some parts of the Chad area and savanna type regions. And this is a beautiful area here. It's semi-tropical, beautiful. They say it stays green most of the year. That's why our cattle there in this region is so fat, and their milk is so rich. Because you can imagine how much greenery and how much food is there on the ground for our cattle to graze. This is why our Fulani brothers left from Niger region, okay, and traveled eastern corridor to go into Sudan because of the grazing areas like this. Now you can get the bigger picture. How do we ended up over there? Our cattle have a nose and they have a mind of their own. You know that. They are smart. Subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving them something. When our cattle begin to smell and they start to travel east, a lot of times we begin to go the routes because we see our cattle, because it's natural. Subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them something innate to find food and water. So they start traveling east, right? You think about that. They start to travel east and they begin to go east, and they find areas like this, and our brothers settle in that region. And again, they find people there. They're Arabs, but they look just like themselves, and they speak Arabic language, and they're raising cattle as well. And then those brothers turn back around and they marry their daughters like this. And this is how we disappeared, brothers and sisters, into this region. Now you can understand what has happened in Sudan and how we got to this point. And it's a very interesting story, what has happened to us. I'm going to show you something else too. Here in Ethiopia, we have the Hummer people there as well. And some of them have mixed with the Christian clans. But my understanding is in these areas, the Christian and the Islamic, the Hummer people, this Falaita people, as you saw there, the Hummer people are divided. They're Messeria, yes, they're Messeria Arabs, true, yes. But they also live in some parts of Ethiopia, as we understand today, and they intermix with some Christian clans as well. But they do have a mithaq, a kind of agreement with their brothers there in Habasha. And so you'll find a Muslim and a Christian both on jihad. They go to fight with their brothers. We have that type of situation in Ethiopia today with the Hummer people. So they have also have been in quite a few jihad, and this is why the R.S.F liked them, because these people know how to fight off camels, and they can get into areas and valleys and nooks and crannies of any hill areas and savanna regions because of the camel. They're masters with that. So they know how to go in there and fight and whatnot. So now, brothers and sisters, you have this picture of what has happened there in the Sudan region and everything. And I'm hoping this will help you to discern. And you heard me talk about the fact of what has happened there. The Messeria Arabs, again, we talked about the different clans, and I gave you the pictures and gave you the evidence of these clans and whatnot and so forth. And if you look at this down here again, you see the Falaita people. So now you get that picture again. This situation, 100,000. Again, brothers and sisters, you look at all of these ethnic groups. Okay, these are all from the same people, but they, you know what happens when you have a son. What does your son do? He doesn't stay in the house for the rest of his life, right? He goes out, he marries a girl, and then he has friends with other brothers. This is how we spread. Then we go and set our own families, right, in our own communities. Now we're called the Fadea people. We take a name, okay? And so, but we still Fulani, yes, but we took another name, Ziyad, okay? We take a name like this in another area. We're all Fulani, but they call them Fulaita, of course, in Sudan. This is how we became so numerous there in that region. See, so, okay, where are we at here? Oh, wait a minute here. Okay, yeah, okay. Excuse me for a minute, brothers and sisters. You see what has happened. I have this situation happen many times before, and so let me, let me. Okay, there we go. So, as you heard me talk, brothers and sisters, we have how we have gotten so many of us in this region. We are 100,000 strong. They say 150,000 strong, half Fulani, herdsmen of some sort. All of these ethnic groups that you saw me list here are mainly all herders. Okay, they're herders of camel and cattle, and so this is why they are so numerous. And they again, here's the Arab tribes in Sudan. These are the names, but look there in black, Messeria, right? But you find Look over to your left, you see the Hummer people, Humr. See, the Hummer people are Fulani people. As you saw them, but they could classify them as Arabs because they speak Arabic language, but they're Fulani. And you see all of these groups, these ethnic groups of Arabs, quote unquote, Arab tribes. And so this is why it's adding to the confusion, why I told you many times in the Sahel region, in the Eastern corridor, the Western corridor, you have to have a playbook in order to understand it. It's not as simple as you see. I see another program the other day, African Americans are talking, and one even African lady was talking about some things going on there. She got a lot of it right, and luckily she stayed out of all the ethnic things because one time she did try to get involved in, and she said something wrong because she went off with some other Tubob had said, and it was wrong. But now you got the picture here about all of the ethnic tribes. So even if you are Fulani, even if you're Falaita, Falaita is Fulani. They still classify you as Arab because there you speak the Arabic language. So there they classify you as Arab. Again, not white Arab, but just as Arab because you speak these languages. See, so I wanted to get that backdrop to you. And again, when you look at this, you can understand now. We have our people to your right, Fulfulde Sudani. They have that language there. They still have it. But these people who speak more or less this language are the people who came in the 1920s and 1930s and 1940s. They call them Falata people. The Falaita people who we talk about now, the Hummer people, they don't speak this dialect anymore. Some may speak it, but most of them don't. They speak Arabic. See, so again, those are the differences of that. And again, we go back here as I'm closing here. We got the areas of where all of these clans come from. Now you understand why this jihad in Sudan is so strong. Look at all of these clans. There are 100,000, 150,000 who decided to go in jihad together, Fulani mixed Arabs. And they decided to go in jihad. We are noted for that. When our brothers called jihad in Mali, the Messina group, remember what did the imam of the Messina group said? He had fighters coming all the way from Sudan to come to Mali to fight in jihad. So we're noted for that. We're the main ones who have this type of reciprocity, so to speak. The Arabs that we understand today, like in some parts of northern Africa, and of course the Jazeera Arab, they do come to fight in aid, as we see in Palestine today. They will come to fight in the aid of their brothers. But we have a big time here in Africa and in the Sahel and the Western coastal region. And so we have this. And so you see this again, the green, we stretch all the way across from northern Nigeria, all the way into Chad, all the way into Sudan. But Sudan is where we have the mixture, and we have them speaking the Arabic language, and they call them the Showa Arab. But we know them to be, again, Messaria. Also, Messaria is part of that. As you saw me give you the list. And here's, again, some of the fighters there for R.S.F. and whatnot, and so forth and so on. And the map, again, this is a better map showing you the length and the depth of the Fulani going in from Nigeria from the 1800s and then coming in and mixing with all of these groups there that you see in the green, all this area, and begin to mix with the herders there, their cattle and their camel herders, and they begin to mix. And then we begin to have all these different clans that came out of the mixtures since 1817. Remember, I told you when our brother, the Sultanate, when he died, Usman Dan Fodio, many of the fighters went from the Sokoto Emirate into Sudan to go fight jihad. And along the way, they began to mix with these people. When they begin to see their daughters, they begin to take them as brides and so forth and so on. So that's how, essentially, again, brothers and sisters, we disappeared. And this is a beautiful story about us. And then you see some of the homelands, why the fighting in western part of Sudan and parts of Chad, why it's so crazy. Look at this lush, it almost like quote unquote Garden of Eden, because Subhanahu wa ta'ala, he calls Africa the Queen of Heaven. That's right, brothers and sisters. This is what Subhanahu wa ta'ala is called us. That our area where we live, the Queen of Heaven, because we have areas like this that we live in. We have areas like this. Plus, you know, the desert is not, the desert was like this at one time. The Sahara was like this at one time. But now it's not like that, of course. But we still have areas like this. Our cattle graze very well. This is why our brothers and sisters, when they come here to fight, they fight because when someone drives them off a land, how would you look at this beautiful area? You live here and suddenly somebody come to drive you off. You're going to let them do it? You're going to fight back, right? This is what has happened, even in the Sudan region. Unfortunately, the blue blacks and green blacks, there's an agitation that happened, and suddenly our Fulani brothers, half mixed Fulani brothers, begin to take jihad, and they begin to fight the Nuba people, unfortunately, even though they were living in this area together. But they weren't mixing much, but they lived together. But now, of course, you know, that's not the case anymore because our brothers are exterminating them. And it is a form of jihad, unfortunately. This is why we have a bad name, because once we go in retaliation and revenge mode, we have a tendency to be so harsh. And in some ways, it's not right. And we are so harsh in our retribution and whatnot. And this is no different in Sudan. And again, as we get ready to close here, we've got a picture. This is taken here some years back, but you get the picture here. This is our brothers said the Messaria Arabs. We know today, but you see they're mixed. The leader of the R.S.F is there, right there. You see in the center here to your right. You see a brother here with you can look at his clothing here. This is more like the Chadian type style way they wear this. You know, this is not Nigerian style. You look at this, the people from Eastern Chad and so forth, they wear clothes like this. You see with the big gandura, and they have also, some have ima, you know, like I wear, but you could tell them, but they are all Fulani mixed, Messaria Arabs and whatnot. And this is he's the head, the one there at the top, he's the head of the group as we speak today. See his name there. He's got the name of Hamidi. And again, remember the Futafula people, we have this name, right? From way back, going back to the 15th century, we have many kings, not kings, that's English, many sultans and emirs with this name. See, so that's how we know that when we hear somebody in Tanzania and you hear the name Hamidi or Sawadi or Sani, we know these Fulani. He's got Fulani heritage. We know these names. This is no different with him. And you look at these guys, you put them there in northern Nigeria walking down the street, and you know who they are. You say, hey, you know what? These are our Fulani brothers there. And when in fact they're classified as Arabs, but they are Fulani. So now, brothers and sisters, I'm hoping that you got this picture today, and I'm hoping that I've enlightened you on this, and I'm hoping that you like this type of talk so you can get a better understanding of the Futafula people, and that this will help you in discerning what has happened and whatnot, and how we end up being the R.S.F. You understand now how we got to R.S.F. and how we are in jihad in Sudan, and we're about ready to take it over. And these are Fulani clans, brothers and sisters. Okay, again, these are Fulani clans. This is what makes this so interesting, is that we have all of these clans here again, and all of these clans here. This is why there's 100 to 150,000 of them, and they're all called the Jihad. And he went, and now they're fighting in Sudan to take over Sudan. And remember what I told you, and I'll get ready to close here. The Sudanese government said that they're not real Sudanese. They're not real Arabs because they are mixed with the Fulani people. See? And so you see the Falaita here, as you heard me talk about Falaita, how we got the word Falaita, how we got the word Falaita and Falata. Yeah, Falata and Fulaita. Those are the two names. Now you understand how we got these names in this corridor, the Eastern Corridor. Now you get the picture. So you saw that, and now you understand why the jihad there is so strong, because the government forces want to drive them out. And Bashir, the former government president, said that he was going to take these half Fulaita people, Fulani people, Pulo, take them, okay? Take them to the Fula people, take them and let them go into the military. He reneged off that agreement. After he used them to fight the green and blue blacks, he then told them, no, I'm not going to give you citizenship, and I'm not going to let you go into the military where you have all the military rights, salaries, and so forth and so on. He used them for the jihad in the western part of Sudan, and then he kind of messed on them, like flushed them down the toilet. Now you understand why we got so mad. You know how the Fulani people are. They got abused. You see the jihad is going on in Mali and Burkina Faso and Niger, and especially in Nigeria. It's bloody, isn't it? When they have been abused, what happens? And this is no different in Sudan. They got abused, their rights taken from them, and even in some areas, they even take them off the grazing lands. Okay? Removed them out of the grazing lands and said, you're not Sudani. You can't be here no more. They took them out of areas like this. So what do you think they're going to do? What do you do? It's human. You're going to fight back. Your home is here. You built your home. Your children's born here. You have a wife. You have your father, your mother, your grandparents maybe still living. They're living in this area here. And suddenly someone come telling you you're not Sudani, that you are part Sudani. I mean, you're part Arab. So therefore you can't live in this area no more. Have you been here for 150 years? Brother, sister, you think about that. I mean, I'll let you make a decision on that. What would you do? Huh? What would you do? You living in your area now and somebody come and tell you that you're not Nigerian because you're part Fulani, and they drive you out and take your cattle from you and all your wealth? What do you do? I'm asking you that. This is what is happening to Fulani people in the Western corridor, all the way to the middle corridor of the Sahel, all the way to the Eastern corridor. We have the same formula. We have grazing right problems where they take our land from us and our cattle. We have the same problems everywhere, and our people take the jihad to fight back. This is not an excuse for what is happening, brothers and sisters. Don't get me wrong, please, because in the Islamic rules, we have rules to when we can fight and kill, okay? I'm not justifying that, but I'm giving you a history so you can understand why you have all of this jihad going on in the corridor. They've been driven off their lands, brothers and sisters, okay? They've been driven off their land, and they're told they're not Ghanaian, even though they lived in Ghana for hundreds of years. They told all of a sudden, no, you can't have rights here no more. They took their passports from them in Ghana and threw them off the land, and so they start to fight. The same thing now in the western part of Sudan, in many of the essences. They went into jihad to fight the Nuba people because the Nuba people, someone got them to start to fight. They've been living together for hundreds of years. And suddenly now they got to fighting each other for this beautiful land. And you see what has happened. And the government, after they used them, told them, after they defeated Nuba people and ran many of them off and began to annex the area, then they told them, Bashir said, you know what, 2008, yeah, thank you, yes. And then 2012 again, thank you, but I'm going to give you citizenship in Sudan. Huh? Now, brothers and sisters, you understand the jihad? They took their rights from them. And he let them, and they've been there since the early parts of the early jihad in Sudan in the early 1800s, okay, all the way to the time of Muhammad Mahdi. Remember him? The Futafula people have always been in this region since about 1817, brothers and sisters, and they lived in regions like this. And also in other, in the Sahara and the desert regions, but many of them, our herder brothers, lived in regions like this. And this is why they're in jihad, brothers and sisters, because they have been told they're not Sudani. And then they are trying to drive them out of Sudan, the government forces. Now you have the R.S.F. Now you understand what, so when you read what's going on in Sudan, now you understand why the R.S.F. is fighting. Because they want to take over the land and bring it back under the Sharia law. and make it back into an Islamic, state again, and give the rights back to the people and give rights back to our herders again. This is why they're there. Because again, brothers and sisters, and I will close here, all these people here are herders. All of these groups, and there's more than these here. I'm just giving you some. All of them are herders. Every single one of these are herders of either cattle, camel, goat, or mixed with that. Some are cattle and camel. This is all of these here. And this is why we mixed with all of these clans here. And that's how we disappeared in Sudan. So brothers and sisters, I'm long today, but it's worth it because I wanted to educate you on what's happening in Sudan. If you like these talks, please subscribe to me and spread this to other Fulani people so they can understand their history, because you should understand what's happened to the Fulani people and how they disappeared in Andalus, how they disappeared in Morocco. I talked about all these issues. Now I talked to you about how they disappeared in the Sudan, the Eastern Corridor region. I explained to you how they disappeared. Now you got the picture, what has happened, how they disappeared in these regions and whatnot. If you like these type talks, please subscribe to me, brothers and sisters. Pass this on to other Fulani brothers and sisters, maybe living in the Western states, so they can understand. So instead of them putting their heads down, being called terrorists and other names, you have a history. You can explain the beautiful history that the Futafula people have. And now you have this kind of history that can take you. I've been taking you from the West all the way to the East. The history of how we have been doing, the empires that we've had. I've been covering all of that. Now I've covered the Sudan, the Eastern Corridor region, how complex it is. Now you understand what has happened to us there and why we're in jihad. So brothers and sisters, I'll leave you with that. Assalamu alaikum. Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Anjarama.